Good evening and welcome to the Monday, March 28th, 2022 Litchfield Board of Selectmen meeting. The board has just come out of a paperwork review. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. First item we have is the review and approval of consent items. We have an account payroll manifest of March 22nd, 2022 in the sum of $51,883.22 and March 29th, 2022 in the sum of $70,476.10. We have a payroll manifest of March 24th, 2022 in the sum of $64,026.04 and March 31st, 2022 in the sum of $55,358.61. We have a $6,000 warm zone grant acceptance. We have the NHDRA Form MS 232 report for actual appropriations, and we have one elderly exemption. Is there any items members would like to remove from consent? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve?
Make a motion, we approve.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor? Mr. Leary?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's?
Aye.
Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0-0. Is there any other business members would like to add this evening? Hearing none, public input will occur no earlier than 6:45 p.m. The first item of business is the approval of the March 14th, 2022 minutes. Has everybody had a chance to review? Are there any comments or clarifications?
I have not had a chance to review them. But if everybody else has, I will go along with the consensus.
Okay. That's good. Do we have a motion to approve?
Yes.
Motion by Mr. Leary,
Second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All in favor? Mr. Leary?
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's? Mr. Lynch?
Aye.
Ms. Queenan?
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 5-0-0. The next item of business is the purchase of new fire engine with ARPA funds discussion. Mr. Brown.
Okay, I placed this on the agenda this evening for continued discussion. We discussed this at our last meeting. There was some questions that were asked. We didn't have all the answers for you. And so the fire department, the fire chief, his deputy, has been working with the company that they have been working with for the past year, refining the proposal that they had. It came in late today, just shared that with you through an email. And I think it's important that just kind of recap the highlights of their proposal, where we're at with the fire engine. If the town were to entertain purchasing the fire truck with ARPA funds, the purchase price of the truck is $703,246. Then they have proposal for a trade-in of $7,262 and a $15,000 100% prepayment credit. This brings the total purchase price of the fire engine to $680,984. This was the number that was discussed at deliberative and was on the ballot, which that we all know that vote failed. This price is solid until April the 15th, 2022. We can lock the price in as long as we provide a down payment in the amount of $450,000 on or before April the 15th. And the second payment would be due on July 1st. That would be $230,984. That would be when we finalize the plans and we do the final signing of the contract. The ARPA funds, we know that when a few weeks before deliberative session, we had reached out to legal counsel and asked them if the warrant article failed, in her opinion, could we use ARPA funds to purchase the fire engine? Her advice and guidance response back to our question was that we could use the ARPA funds, and no means no would not be a factor in this case. The reason being is that we're talking about two funding sources. The ARPA funds is a grant fund. The Board of Selectmen have been granted authority by the voters to accept unanticipated funds and to expend those funds however you choose. So that's different than the operating budget. When there's an operating budget question, anything from the operating budget, and no means no, no means no. If you say we're going to ask to buy a copying machine and that is not approved, and you go and try to find money elsewhere in the operating budget, you cannot do that. I provided you with some information on this, and obviously there's opinions out there. We'll probably hear some of those opinions this evening from public comment. But that is the information I have from our legal counsel, and that's what I'm presenting to the board. The ARPA funds, just a recap, where the position that we're in, the town was notified early on that it would receive $904,623 in ARPA funds. We received our first installment in the amount of $452,311.62 back in July. Those funds are secured. They're in a bank. They're in a holding fund separate from any other funds that the town manages. We expect to receive our second installment, the balance of $224,623, no sooner than May and no later than June. That's the guidance that we've been provided. Just recently, I attended a webinar, which was really the best one that I've been participated in, and did a great job providing an overview of the program. There's been, when the funds were released, it was difficult for communities and towns to really understand how the funds could be used, what oversight there would be. Typically, federal funds are funneled through to the state, and then at the state level, they manage them, and we are able to communicate with a certain department very easy. In this case, the funds are going to be managed through the U.S. Treasury. When they came out with the awards, there was interim guidance, which was not clear. They went through a period of time when I think they were getting input from towns and cities, mayors, our state senators and representatives were all getting feedback, and the U.S. Treasury was listening. Based on that listening, they went back, modified a lot of the guidelines, and came out with their final rule on January 6, 2022. The great thing in the final rule was that they revisited this lost revenue category, which I know you've heard me talk about. They loosened the guidelines and basically said that any town, city that received $10 million or less can utilize the funds under the pot or category called lost revenue. Lost revenue is one of those categories that is least restrictive, very flexible. The intent there is for towns to be able to purchase capital items, purchase one-time expenses, things that due to the COVID pandemic, things were put off for whatever reason. And that's really what the purpose of the funds are for. There's other categories, which we know, we've heard them talk about infrastructure, talk about broadband expansion. They talk about stormwater, sewer, and those are other categories. They're very rigid. There's a little bit more complex when you start going down that path. The advice that was given to us is that if you can use the lost revenue category, use that. Do not go into a different category because it's a totally different grant administratively process. So I think that's where we're at right now with ARPA. As we had started this, we always said that we would, in concept, we'd start the process off once we knew what the program guidelines would be, working with our capital improvements committee, going back and looking at our CIP plan, figuring out what we could address using ARPA funds, and bringing a list to the Board of Selectmen for review. Unfortunately, the fire engine question failed, and we're sitting here under a very tight time frame. If we are going to consider using these funds to secure a fire engine, we don't have a lot of time. We all know that the supply chain out there has put a lot of pressure on all the manufacturing facilities, and they're working with us the best they can. But as we know, they're looking at a commitment from this town by April the 15th if we want to secure that pricing that was offered to us back early on in this process. So the big question is for the board, if we want to consider using these funds to purchase a fire engine, then the next step would be to hold a public hearing. That would be the appropriate thing to do. We hold a public hearing. We provide, enough notice for the citizens. I have reserved the auditorium at the high school. We have talked to LCTV. They've got their staff ready to attend that hearing. The fire department has been working on gathering more information. So I think everyone's prepared for the public hearing if this board wants to take it to that next step. If this board's not comfortable using ARPA funds, then I'm not so sure that we should entertain a public hearing. That's something that really, if that's something you want to do, you want to hear input from the citizens, then, a public hearing would be the next step.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Brown. Members, any inputs, comments, questions?
I have several. First of all, I'd like to go back to the email that was sent out, and I'm going to read it in its entirety and then point out some discrepancies. Chairman Weber and I have received comments from Chief Freitzel, Deputy Nickel, and Paul Kelly regarding comments made about the fire truck at the last Selectmen's meeting. Firemen are extremely upset that they were called out for not being at the polls on voting day, raised some valid points that we should all be aware of. First, not one other town employee or department has been at the polls over the past several years, providing information that directly impacts their budget request. Now that right there is not true, because just a couple of years ago when we were voting on a fire station, the whole walk was lined with firemen.
Mhm.
Not one fireman was out here. This was your big request, Chief, and you should have been there. And I don't think you can look me in the eye and tell me that you did everything you could to put this before the voters and to get it passed. I don't think you can. The firemen feel like they should not be asked to beg for equipment that is needed for their safety and the safety of Litchfield residents. Yet here we are. We've had the creation of an SRO officer, part-time clerk, several plow trucks, $200,000 paving warrant articles, cruisers, radio communication projects, etc. Not one department was represented. There were 2 policemen at the polls. You could walk in the building, you could lay eyes on them. That helps right there. And people did say that. Town clerk cannot be outside polling because she's a town clerk, and she has to be inside running the election. Okay. In fact, the deputy chief said he would need to take a vacation day if he did attend the polls. We were all there unpaid. So I don't think a vacation day, if it's something that they really wanted, is out of the question. Personal day or whatever kind of day you want to call it could have been done. He asked permission to place information at the polls, but was denied by the moderator, which is true. You cannot place that there. It is electioneering. Second, the selectmen have asked the fire department to defer the purchase of the fire engine for 2 years, and they have done so with a handshake agreement that a new fire engine would be a priority of the board. There was never a handshake agreement on any board that I sat on. And I've been here for every year that this has been brought forward.
We did tell them that we'd defer to the next year.
We said we would defer, but no, actually the first year,
First year, it was supposed to be on the warrant.
Brent Lemire talked to the
Chairman
chief and
Lemire
they
talked
pulled
to the
it.
chief, correct. Second year, we had COVID
We voted not to put it on
due to
the warrant.
COVID.
We just voted not to put it on the warrant. There was no agreement. that it was going to be a priority, period. That was never even discussed. Based on this input, Chairman Weber has requested a revised cost estimate of the specific purchase details and asked that I secure a location for a public hearing. If the Board of Selectmen decide it's the next step to take. The fire engine is almost $700,000. If we use all the money on that, which I've said all along, we shouldn't dump it into one fund. I believe the town only spent $200,000 of state money on roads this year. We usually do $400,000. Am I correct in that?
Correct.
Okay, so there's $200,000 that could have been spent on the roads. Also, in talking to Kevin Brown, who's our road agent, there are problems at Albuquerque towards Page Road. There are several culverts and catch basins that need to be replaced, and those are going to cost a lot of money. So if you take the $200,000 and put it back into that where it belongs and take care of these other things, there's really not enough money for the fire truck. The police have needs. They need a new side-by-side. They need a possible weapons upgrade. Looking at this list here, there's all kinds of things that are listed that other departments need. If we take this money and we give it to just one item, we tie our hands with what we can do, as far as I'm concerned. And also, I have a problem with 836 voters in this town that said no to this. You could have a special hearing and you could have 40 people there. And if 21 of them vote for it and 19 vote against, that overrides an 836 taxpayer vote. And I have a real problem with that. I was critical of the school when they did it a couple of years ago, and I'm very critical of the way this is being done now. I just think it's wrong. It almost screams of backroom politics, and I think it's not fair to the people of this town. And I've said my piece. I'm done.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I'd like to add to that. Kevin. Come on, Kevin, where are you? It's Kevin Lynch. No means no. The ARPA funds, we did not know what we could use it for or anything until recently. To take most of that, to put it on a truck, okay, that the voters voted no for. And they didn't even know that we could use the ARPA funds ourselves. If they had some idea of it, then maybe we could have worked it in. I do agree that maybe there is a truck need, but there are other towns I know if trucks fail, they have to wait to the following election to get a new truck. It happens across the state, all over the place. The thought of buying a used truck could be different. Okay, we may throw that into it because the demand is not high. The other side of this is that I'm a firm believer when the voters say no, without knowing any of the other information that we have, that we didn't even know that we could do. Now, the other side, the side of this, the ARPA funds is not just for the fire department. We have to consider the other needs. As Bob and Ben mentioned, we cut the road spot down by $200,000. We got a lot of road work. The roads are in poor shape in certain part of town. I will admit that when around, especially this winter, they take a hard hit. The other side is another side of this that seriously thinking about it, it's not just roads. We have a backhoe that needs to be replaced at the highway or the incinerator down there. And talking to them, both of them, they both said the same thing. That backhoe needs to go. This is a perfect example for something like this. It's much cheaper, okay, for the taxpayers if this is the ARPA fund. We didn't put a replacement cost into the budget to hold off because we dropped the road agent, we dropped the road improvements. Why buy this? Why buy that? But if we can get something for that, that's a different story. But to use the ARPA funds totally or more for a truck, I don't believe it's the right thing to do. So the voters have said no. And the voters don't even know about the ARPA fund stuff as well as we're trying to learn too. Because we did the budget, we didn't know what these funds can be used for at the time. We did not know. Now we know that we think we can use it. Wait a minute. I think the voters need to know this more. They vote us in to represent them. When no is no, no is no. Okay, and that's how we've been doing it for years. It's odd now because of the COVID situation and all these things coming down, all these funds coming from the federal government instead of state that we used to know. There's a whole different world out there to try to use that to solve one problem, yet we have more problems to deal with than that one problem. To say that one truck down is a major problem for this town? No, I don't believe it is. Because there are towns out there who may lose a truck halfway through the year. Okay, it's out of service, mutual aid is the world. I hate to say that, but that's the world. Okay, and they have to, that following year, if the truck goes down, they need to go get it to put it in the budget because it did break and failed. Now, granted, they tell us it is going to fail. My problem is the age of the truck, and why does it take us so long to tell us it's going to fail? Okay, we should have been thinking about truck replacement a long time ago. That's how I feel about it. Instead of buying a new station right now, it's all right to have a new station, but put what in? It won't work. That's my point. Okay, nothing against the fire department. It's against the operation of the whole situation. That's what I'm saying. I'm thinking. You know, you try to plan ahead about what's going to break, what's going to break. Having a new roof is nice, and all this stuff, but it's not about that. It's about getting somebody to there. Okay, especially with a volunteer effect. So I have to agree with Bob. It's not the time. But the other thing I want to say, it's all new to me in a sense, as well as it's all new to you as well. The ARPA funds just coming down and what we could spend and what we could spend on, they'll make a look at the big picture of the whole town. Not just one whole thing, look at the big picture. It's not just the fire department, it's the roads, it's the transfer stations, the highway. Okay, it could be the police department with an issue, okay? Or something like that. But to dump it all into one, no.
Okay, thank you. Mr. LaSalle's.
Yes, there's no doubt in my mind with the age of the equipment that we have that there is a need for a new fire truck. I'm convinced of that. I think the question of spending pretty much all of the ARPA funds that we have on one piece of equipment for one department is, I think that's a valid point. I don't think that, we have multiple needs, and to spend it all on just this one particular truck, it doesn't seem right to me. I think the question of no means no, although legally, we might be justified, if you will, to spend it on this one fire truck. I think the ethics of doing that are very questionable. I think that when the public goes in to vote, in this particular case, they looked at all the various warrant articles that we have. And of all those warrant articles, I was shocked to see that the one thing that was voted down was the fire truck. I was shocked at that. Now, to me, that's sending a message. It has nothing to do with the need or the criticality of the need. It has to do with what the public felt was a priority. And I think that if we decided to go against that no means no, I would want a consensus of not just a 3-2 vote or so. I would want a consensus of this board to be able to utilize the ARPA funds for that and overrule the sentiment of the public. Like I say, we have a need for a new fire truck. We have an aging fleet. Is it the end of the world if we don't put in an order for this particular fire truck? I would say no, it is not the end of the world. We do have a need for it, but it's not the end of the world. I would not be adverse to looking at the market of a used truck. Do we have to use this particular truck during this year? You know, could we put this truck in reserve for this 12 months and only use it in a critical need? I would certainly look into that. If we put in an order for this truck, we're not going to get that truck for a couple of years. So where does that put us? Where if we found a truck that was, maybe, I don't know, and I don't even want to throw, but something that was a cheapo 300,000 piece of equipment. All right. Well, we'd get it fairly shortly, I would think. So that would be helpful from that standpoint. So I think my good friend Robert and my good friend Kevin have made some valid points. And like I was saying, to go against the will of the people when everything else was voted in, I think is a pretty big hurdle.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Queenan?
Yeah, I'm gonna be a little all over the place. I'll go through my notes.
Pages.
I actually do believe we need a fire truck. I think the need is real. I understand what you're saying about the no means no. I'm keeping an open mind on that because I do believe if the money came from the town, absolutely stick with that. I am hearing legally we may not have to. I've gone back and forth many times in the last 2 weeks on this decision. And again, I'm going to keep an open mind through this process, and I want to hear input from everybody to make decisions here. I respect the fire department in a way, well, for many reasons, but I look at the capital improvement plan that we have. And I think you had emailed it to everybody. The fire truck is on the list for 2022 onward, and the rest are minor, but the big ticket item from the capital improvement plan, which was consisted of what? Everybody from every committee in town,
Correct.
people from the public,
And two citizens reps.
2 citizens came in. Was there a public hearing on that?
Correct.
Okay, so we have a list here. You can find it if you go to the town website, town department's planning board, and you'll see SIP plan there, and up will come the spreadsheet. So technically, if we were to just adhere to the SIP plan, they're there. It's whether we fund it now or later, seeing the need. I thought a few things. I know we're talking about the fire truck and no means no, but I think we have multiple issues going on here. I think the town probably needs a meeting or some presentation here, if it's not a meeting, to say what ARPA is for the public to know, what ARPA funds will pay for, and what ARPA funds will not pay for. I think then we have to go out, and I don't know, we haven't really discussed it as a board yet. What input do we want to see how these ARPA funds are spent? Just our town administrator go to his department heads and ask that way, right? Do we ask the public for input? There's ways we have to look at that. Then once people make recommendations of what they want to spend the money for, then who decides? Then you better bump it up against the list that is valid ARPA funds, but then who decides which ones will get paid? So I don't think we're there yet, even as a town, to decide that. Even when they're paid, does the Board of Selectmen decide that? Do your department heads do that? And then it goes to the board? You know, do we have committees? You know, there's a lot, I think there's still a lot of discussion going on. So I did go and look at towns of what they were using ARPA funds for. Fire trucks were some of them. It was manhole covers, sewage, public buildings that could be used, so that, you know, just to understand that. So I think we're still kind of in a step of, do we want a public meeting just for the fire truck, or do we need one to educate the town of what this is as we go through, and then decide what kind of input we want, and then decide who's going to make decisions? So I don't know if I'm helping with the situation or not. I do think we need a fire truck. I do think it's imperative we get one. I do think they're following the SIP plan. Again, we have to get a list of projects and ideas, I think. You don't want to have 50 ideas come forward, because that's paperwork and money also, but some decisions have to be made there. So I'm here to listen. I want to hear more about the no means no on gifts or this money that came out of COVID.
So I don't think at this time we have any more information on no means no. We'd have to get legal counsel, have a discussion with them on that portion of it.
I think this guidance is pretty clear, though.
It is New Hampshire MA, and
Yeah, it's pretty clear.
Yeah.
I think legally, I think this is fine,
Mhm.
but ethically, I think
it's a gray line. It really is.
Yeah.
100% is. I mean, I strongly also feel that a fire truck is needed. It's been needed for a long time. When we start looking at ARPA funds, I think we need to point back to the CIP. A lot of effort was put into that. There are items on that did not pass, and most of this board in the past did pull it off a warrant. Case in point, the backhoe, because we were told by several members and the ex-road agent that backhoe could go for another 10 years. You know, so we pulled it off a warrant for that standpoint. You know, we need to figure out a mechanism on how we're going to spend these funds. And I do believe that the CIP is the right place for it to be, because you got a cross-sectional group of board members, department heads, citizens, and so forth that are coming forth with it.
And when do these funds have to be spent?
So we have until, I just did some research on that. All the funds need to be under contract by December 31st, 2024. So we need to have them all under contract. And then we have to have all funds expended by December 2026. So we've got time. So again, all the funds need to be encumbered or under contract by December 2024 and expended by December 2026.
I would just add to that, and I'm looking at the CIP plan. Everything just listed for 2022 adds up to $540,000, and that's only including one fire truck. That's $540,000. So if we took the ARPA funds and paid for everything that's on the CIP plan, that's $540,000.
You said one fire truck? What?
Then that's only one fire truck's payment of $95,000.
Oh, one payment.
Yeah, that's because it was lease purchase
Of
at that point.
$95,000. If my math is right, it's $540,000, okay?
Yeah, that's if we went with the lease purchase.
Yeah.
That's if we went with a lease purchase. And we also have to remember, and I go back to the roads again, is our job as Board of Selectmen, number one priority is the town's roads.
Mhm.
So I think before we spend any money on anything else, we make sure our roads are good.
I'd just like to make a couple of comments and not want to get, in a back and forth here, but just a couple of statements that were made. I think it's important to point out Mr. Larry, when you had pointed out that the police officers were at the polls.
Mhm.
You need to understand those police officers are there, assigned
Mhm.
there,
Yes, they
and
are.
were being paid special detail pay to be there. So
They were there.
they
so
were
people
there
could see
and
them.
being paid, and that was their assignment. Second, I think
thought
it's
that they were my personal security.
well, they were there to protect everyone, that's for sure.
I can't tell you how many.
And the other
people-
thing, that I just don't want people that are watching, or just to remind all of us that as the last few years, trying to get funding secured for the fire station, through that process, we continue to hear at public hearings comments from our fire chief about what about fire engines, and it was stated several times that they were intentionally holding off on purchasing fire engines because they would have to be custom designed, custom ordered, and that if we had a new station, we could go off and actually purchase a regular, design, something that's pretty standard in the industry today. It would not be a custom made, because we were dealing with height restriction and length restrictions in the old fire stations. So intentionally, the department held off on purchasing a new engine, even though we knew the fleet was aging. But that was all intentional to actually try to save money for the taxpayers. And second, to make sure that we were able to purchase a fire engine that met the department's needs, the community needs, and not just was designed to fit in the old fire station. So that was one point. I just wanted everyone to understand how we got into the situation of an aging fleet and where we're at today. That decision to replace the engines was delayed, waiting for a new station. Once the new station was put in place, as we discussed earlier this evening, whether it was a handshake deal or not, there was the fire engines were not placed on the warrant for the past 2 years, because we were just coming off that bond vote and we just wanted some cooling off time. And so again, that kind of got us to where we're at right now. I don't want anyone to think that anyone was mismanaging the capital replacement plan. We're in the situation because we were all aware of it, and it is what it is. So I just think it's important for people to understand that.
Now, Selectman Leary mentioned a lease purchase, 1 year payment for a lease purchase. Now, how would that work in the second year?
Wouldn't work.
In the CIP, it was loaded in for every single year.
Yeah, it's basically $95,000 or $89,000, depending on which vehicle they got, for a period of 8 years.
But what my point is, if we used ARPA funds for the first year, now we have a truck that's paid for 1 year. How about the second year? What do we use for that? If the ARPA funds are used up,
So, I mean, that's
That's the issue.
that's the unfortunate situation that we were in this year, where trying to figure out how to word the warrant article, because we have a tax cap. We could have easily worded the article so that there would be no tax impact in 2022. We could have deferred the payment for 1 year and there'd be no tax impact. We could have used the unassigned fund balance for the first year's payment. There would have been no tax impact, which could possibly, I can't speak for the budget committee, it's possibly the budget committee could have supported the article with no tax impact. We avoided that because we wanted to be upfront, straightforward with the taxpayers. We don't be accused of playing any games and trying to, circumvent the tax cap. We were straightforward, honest with the citizens, and unfortunately, it didn't pass.
see, I think Robert's suggestion for the 1 year lease purchase is not a valid suggestion, because if we did that, it's the same thing as
Yeah.
spending the whole wad, because you're obligating yourself to spend it.
You're contracted to do it, and
I-
that's wrong.
I think you could look at
What I was saying there was, the reason why I said that was because we were talking about the CIP plan. And so I said, everything if you add up everything that the CIP plan recommended for 2022, it adds up to $540,000.
Okay.
So if we were to say, oh yeah, this is what the CIP committee wants, then that leaves about, what, 300,000, 360,000.
But see that
So there's no room for a fire engine there to buy, because they want it all at once now.
certainly not for the whole thing. No.
Correct.
No, a used one possibly.
I have an option. As a selectman, we voted no. The townspeople voted no. Using the CIP as an example for just 1 year doesn't mean the following years in which we have that thing involved. Where's that money going to come from?
We can't obligate next year
We
to.
can't do that.
No.
Exactly.
No.
So that's how I feel about it. Okay. And it's no. As much as it lost, okay, it's still lost. Okay. And we can't just go on and say, well, what can we do? Do we use the ARPA funds, which is the new funding? We really didn't have anything until this year. We didn't even know what that number was going to be exactly. Now it is big. I grant you. But we cut back on a lot of other things in order to get to where we are now, because of, the other tax overdues and stuff like that. Grant you, we will need a truck. I said we will need. The word need is different in everyone's mind. Okay, do we have enough there in the barn to handle a fire? I think we do, professionally, as being an firefighter. But there are those who may not agree with me. It's fine. Okay. But on the other hand, we have ways of protecting ourselves still with mutual aid and stuff like that, which everybody uses all the time to come in and protect us. Okay. And we do this all the time. And then it's towns, like I said, their truck fails, breaks down halfway through the year. It's down, it's dead. They're not going to use the ARPA funds. They're going to wait till the town meeting, put it in, have a justification why. Okay, I hate to say that when something breaks and it failed, why put so much money into it? It's another story. So you're going to look at the cost. What's going to break? Is it the frame? One. Is it the motor? The diesels work well. The pumps, well, they're American made. I just say that nicely, okay? They got water in them all the time. So you're going to have corrosion and repair. You have to deal with it. Is there a repair cost that we could do that to break it down to get another 4 or 5 years out of it? And there's still the main frame and everything's good. Those are things to think of. The other side of this, there are a lot of used trucks out there for sale. I went online, checked here and there. There's a lot of it. Not just here. They're all over the place. You get a truck from down south, there's no salt on it. You're doing good. Okay? But I'm just saying there's ways of doing this. I personally have a problem with no. To me, no means a lot to me. I grew up in this stuff all the time, and when the taxpayers say no, they mean no. How we come around, just because something come out of the nowhere, the help, we got to look at what the other costs are associated with the town, and that's our job here. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I think the question for tonight is, do we want to schedule this auditorium, and is it going to be an ARPA fund discussion, or is it going to be a fire truck discussion? We have to think about what the priorities are, starting with the CIP and go from there. And the fire truck is just
Part of the discussion.
part of that.
That's right.
And now what happens if the public comes out and says, we want this? We're sort of backing ourselves in a corner here. Not that public input isn't always welcome, but what if they come out and they say, there's a big hubbub that we need a new dog pound. All right, everybody wants a new dog pound. Are we then obligated to build a new dog pound? Yeah, Pat's Puppy Palace, as the original name was. But you see what I'm saying?
100%.
Or do we schedule a series of meetings? And then the next election, we have some, and I don't know what the legalities of this are, but okay, folks, here's warrant articles for ARPA funds. How do you guys want to vote on it? And then we have some guidance. Now, that doesn't solve our fire truck problem for this year, but at least it gives us some, at the end of that election, we would have some firm guidance on how we want to go with this money.
And the impact is very important to us from the citizens of the town. And what would what to use these funds for? I think it's not to be a fire department meeting. I think it's more, what do you want to spend these funds on? Because we did not put something in the budget because of cost. Okay, and we're talking not big costs or something like that, $100,000, stuff like that. But like the road costs, that didn't happen this year. But yet we have more failure on the roads this year because of the frost problems.
Well, I think all these ARPAs go back to the CIP. I mean, that's where it's always been. We've had all the departments heads in there. We did public polls on what we did: facilities, we did rec, and what was the other one? There wasn't a 3 through the planning board. It was a joint one, planning board and CIP.
We did a community design.
Community design. There was also, I think there was a facilities poll that was out there, rating different things.
Oh, we did.
We got all public
NRPC
input
did a
for that,
poll,
and we brought it back in to the CIP.
Based upon that, is there a need for another meeting?
Let's look at the research that you guys have already done.
Well, it is. It's all right there, and each one has a coding.
I don't have that. I'm sorry.
Oh, it's an email. It all has coding on what is urgent, what is desirable, and what
Email?
is not necessary.
I think I think if we're going to delegate it to the capital improvements plan committee to say, hey, we got these ARPA funds. Can you coordinate a process to look at the CIP plan and get it out there to the public to find out what other needs and wants there are, and let them put together a draft schedule, bring it to this board for review, and then you have your public hearing to get input from citizens to see what the thoughts are on the list.
Of course, the other option is we send it back to Washington in nickels, say we're tired of fighting over it.
The other towns will take it. We could get
We probably need a new truck to carry the nickels.
Actually, nickels going up, you want to keep them.
nickels are going.
It
Okay.
used to be in this town when the elections took place. If it was a yes, it was a yes. If it was a no, you came back next year.
Yep.
I don't know why we're not following that.
That's
That would be my choice in this matter. Come
I
back
concur.
next year with a plan and go out there and support it. Because I think that's the real reason why it didn't fail, and why it failed. I honestly believe that.
Mr. Chairman,
We'll have public input in a moment. We're
I
almost done here.
understand. Will there be public input before there's a vote from the top?
we're not going to vote on tonight.
Well, the only thing we were doing is deciding if we're going to have a public hearing or not. So
Well, I have some input on that, so if you could hold on to that till I
Okay.
read this. that'd
being
be great.
7:40, we'll open up to public input. Are there any members of the public that would like to?
That was quick.
Come on up.
Sorry, 7:20.
Thank you.
Just because it said 4.
Yeah, I know. Clock's finally right again.
Well, they say, if you have 1 clock, you know what time it is. If you have 2, you're never sure. Good evening. My name is George Lambert. In case you don't know me, I spent a number of years actually on the Board of Selectmen, a number of years in the legislature. And I've
We
argued.
won't hold that against you.
I appreciate that. And I've been down this road before, and it's an ugly, ugly road. No means no is a derivative of attempts to buy Litchfield, by the high school, to play games where they took three coconuts and they hid a marble in there and they moved them around and they slid one of the coconuts back, dropped the marble, and then said, hi, choose. If it's empty, we're going to go do this. Okay. And it was no offense, it was a con game. And the result was we got a new law. Now I've sent to the town manager earlier today some commentary. I don't know if he read it all. There was a lot of it. But he was incredibly helpful, and I would like to thank him for that. Prior to the town meeting, the Board of Selectmen, making sure they wanted to know all of the details and options, decided to ask your attorney, Laura, what were going to be your options if this fails. It's a great thing to do. I would never do it if I was on the Board of Selectmen, because it would tend to be looking like you are willing to go around the will of the voters in advance. However, the question was asked, if the following article is not approved by the taxpayers in March, and the Board of Selectmen were able to find grant funds or use ARPA funds to purchase a fire engine with no use of tax funds, do you believe no means no would apply? Great question. One line long. She gave us a one-sentence answer. It says funds accepted under RSA 3195B are exempt from all of the provisions relative to the limitations and expenditures of town money. So I would say that no means no would not apply. That's, one way to look at it. And so I kept looking. I like to make sure that I do all my homework. And, there's a lot of email I sent around here, but the important one, you guys have all heard of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, right?
Mhm.
You guys can pick up the phone and ask them questions at any time. I found them incredibly useful. They happen to have an article on this, which is asking the question. I'm going to read you the question, and then I'm going to read you the answer. And I'm sorry it's a little long, but I believe it'd be incredibly helpful in this situation. The question was, assume that at a special warrant article seeking an appropriation is defeated at an annual meeting. The government body later applies for and receives either grant or private donations, which will cover all of the proposed expenses. Can the money be accepted under RSA 3195B and then used by the governing body to accomplish the purpose? Great question. We have to start with A, will you have enough grant money to pay for the whole thing? No expenditure to the taxpayer whatsoever. No second-year lease, no third-year lease, no fourth-year lease expense. You got to put it all in one basket and pay for it. Okay? But that wasn't their answer. That was the implication. Okay? The answer was beware here. Is their answer. Beware here. You have a legal argument that such an action is appropriate because of RSA 3195B, which indicates that such action would be exempt from all provisions of RSA 32 relative to the limitation on expenditures by the town or village direct monies. This seems to suggest that the money could be accepted and used as the government body directs for any legal purpose. Well, looks like you're in good shape, right? Well, you got to get to page 2.
However, comma.
Yeah. Even after a no means no vote, we're in good shape. No means no doesn't mean anything. However, on a practical note, voters at the town meeting said no to a purpose. Was that vote purely based on the unwillingness to spend the money, or did the vote reflect the sentiment that the purpose itself was flawed? Do the minutes of the town meeting capture a debate, or were they silent on the issue? Do the terms of the grant or donation give you enough time to take the issue back to the voters to try again? Do you have enough evidence available to convince the DRA that the intent of the voters was clear. Usually the evidence will be conflicting, and the conservative advice will be to take the issue back to the voters and try again. Period. Okay? Now, you have choices, right? You can say, you know what? We're going to wing it and see what happens. You get a legal opinion. Now, I've been on the board. And it used to be, if you got a legal opinion you didn't like, you called another lawyer and you kept doing it until you got the legal opinion you wanted, and then you got the backup. And by the way, when I was on the board, we did that. Because if you don't have a good lawyer who'll give you the right legal opinion, you keep calling. Okay? But you got a legal opinion you like, so you can go with that. You've got a legal defense. What you also have is a lawsuit coming. Okay? Because the public is going to be pissed. Okay? And I can tell you, if this moves forward, there's absolutely no way, if I have anything to say about it, that you're going to enter into a contract by April 11th. Because I will be going to file a temporary injunction to keep the town from entering into that contract, and an indefinite injunction to keep the town from doing that, because we're a Senate Bill 2 town. A Senate Bill 2 town needs a town meeting. A town meeting, by definition, is you go and you take a voter sheet with bubbles on it and you feed it into a machine. That is not a deliberative session. That is not public input. That is not anything else. An SB2 town, we are still SB2 town, right?
Yeah.
If one wants a public meeting is done at a ballot. Now, if you can schedule both a deliberative session to discuss it and a vote, and get that vote counted by April 7th, take the money. If it's positive, do it. No problem. You're good to go. If not, you're violating, no means no, you're violating the advice of the New Hampshire Municipal Association, and you're going to create problems for yourself. If there's an expenditure that actually does not cover the entire cost of that engine in one payment from those grant funds, and you're obligating the town for more money over a period of time, you, no matter what, have violated no means no, because does these funds cover the entire purchase price of the truck and end? Yeah.
And not maintenance, no. But
What's that?
you're talking about ongoing maintenance?
Yes.
No, we'd use the opera
So you're-
funds to purchase, and the operating budget carries maintenance for all vehicles.
Well, but you're adding a vehicle,
We're
Replacing one.
replacing one.
and you have to sell town assets along the way.
That's right. Selectmen have the authority to sell those assets.
Okay. Do you see how this is going to get messy?
Mhm.
Is there anybody on this board who actually wants it to get messy? Because if there is, vote in the affirmative. If you don't want it to be messy, vote tonight for a deliberative session to hold a public meeting. Then schedule a vote. Let's get it before the voters again. Let's get them educated. Let them make an informed decision. But if you don't have a vote in the affirmative the day before you sign that contract, okay, that contract will be annulled. Period. And it will be annulled by a judge. Now, anybody who thinks that I'm not interested in doing that is unaware of the fact that I played this game against the school last year. Okay? And I filed it and I went to court. And I'm happy to do it again. Okay? Because, yeah, I'll spend $1,000. That's what it'll cost me. But you know what it won't cost? It won't cost the taxpayers a little bit more money in maintenance. And it won't cost the taxpayers of this town their self-respect and their confidence in their Board of Selectmen who went out prior to the election trying to work around them. And that is the most offensive thing. If you hadn't sent that letter and gotten that legal opinion beforehand, I would have a completely different opinion. But you know what? You worked around the voters, you tried to do it, and you did it in advance. Okay? If this were in any other context, I would call that collusion. Because you were trying to work around no means no. That means you knew what no means no meant. And you tried to work around it. And any of you who think that that is not insulting behavior to the voters of this town should wonder why you're on this board. I appreciate the fact that you gave me a couple more minutes. If you would like any of the backup material that I have actually sent to the town administrator or town manager, you're the manager now, right?
Administrator.
Administrator. Okay, I keep calling the town manager. I didn't know if we'd given you the promotion yet.
Lynch wants to.
All right. Here's all the backup. And I'm not trying to be disrespectful at all. I've been on the other side.
George, can I ask you a question?
Please.
Would you volunteer to drive the truck full of nickels down to Washington?
I wouldn't sell the nickels. Sell the dimes.
Oh,
The nickels are worth more. The price of nickels just went up 250%.
Pennies would require more than one truck.
Okay, I would drive the quarters.
Okay.
But yeah, I would.
Thank you.
Okay.
The only comment I have, if I may, is the reason that we asked legal counsel, that question was sent prior to deliberative session in anticipation that someone might stand up and ask the question, what happens if this is voted no? Does no mean no pertain in this case? And we wanted to make sure we had asked the question and had the answer at deliberative.
Did anyone ask
Not
the
done
question?
intentionally to circumvent or anything. It was to be informed if we were asked the question.
And the question about ARPA
Biases.
funds was asked during deliberative.
But was the point that you had called the lawyer to get a legal opinion in advance as to what happens when the voters vote it down? Did you tell them? You didn't?
No,
Okay.
we
Tell me if that does not have a potential taste in the mouth of the voters of working around them. No offense.
I think that just to be from my standpoint, this was just a CYA move and just to know what all the options were with no clear intention of following through in any way.
Except for now you're doing it.
Well, no,
We're not doing it. We're having a discussion.
we're just
Right, but now you're having a
We haven't
discussion.
taken any action. We're having a discussion. Would it be something that we'd want to go do, have a public and do it? Not that we are going to do it. It's a discussion point.
we're
I
a
understand.
long ways from that.
Yeah.
I understand. What I'm saying is that if you had said to the public, we have got this legal opinion and we have other options, it would be different. But that is a piece of useful information, and I'm sorry I didn't request it in advance and come make an issue of it. Okay? But RSA 91A allows me to go and make a request and get that information. So I went and got it today so that I could help to inform your thoughtful decision. And I hope that my comments are helpful. I hope that you go out and schedule a meeting and then get a vote and convince the people this is the right thing to do with that money and give them options. Say, hey, these are our options. What do you want to do with that money? And put it on the ballot and put it on the ballot before April 6th. But if you're going to do that, and I'm not sure you can actually schedule it that fast, but if you can, otherwise I would ask for a minor extension on that.
The only date sensitivity here is to lock the price in on the engine
Lower cost.
of the price that was quoted at deliberative. this board could do exactly what you said, and we could hold that hearing and that vote in September.
Right.
So
I would have a great deal of respect for this board if they did that. And I'm not pushing anyone. I'm just trying to give you the best information that I have and the options so that you maintain the both all of the options and the credibility of the citizens of this town. Now, do I believe we should have a fire truck? Damn straight. Okay? But when 68% of the voters say no, that's about the right number, isn't it?
Let's see. I have it right here.
836 to 700. So yeah, you're probably pretty close.
Okay. You know,
Splitting hairs.
It's like 60-40, somewhere in there.
Right.
yeah. You know what? That isn't close. If it was 10 votes, you do a recount. Does anyone have any questions?
I would just state that my opinion is that this goes back on the ballot in next March's election. That is my wish.
And I'd like to add to that, if we use the ARPA funds that we're receiving now, and postpone some of those ARPA funds being spent, and use that to offset the cost of the, we get things that need done, and then we got more funds left over, we may put that towards the purchase of the thing for next year. That's how I feel about it.
Well, I hope no one feels offended by my comments or by my attempt at educating you. I just wanted to bring a little historical context to the conversation with all due respect.
Thank you.
Thank you for your input. We always
there any-
welcome it from our citizens.
What's that?
So thank you for your input. It's always welcome to hear from our citizens.
And the town administrator, not manager, sorry, you haven't gotten the promotion yet, has my phone number, has my email address. If anyone has questions, please give me a call. Because I know this isn't interactive per se, but I've been down this road before and accused of getting it wrong, read it in the front page of the newspaper that I got it wrong. So I went and learned about it.
George, I feel offended. I want to challenge you to a duel.
Pistols?
Pistols.
Let's
please.
go, baby. Constitutional carry state. You pick the weapon.
George hasn't changed much.
Not a bit. Not a bit.
Thank you, George.
But I love what you guys do. I know it's hard. I know you're going to take a lot of comments from people. You're going to take a lot of flack. This is an opportunity for you to bring the facts and to reduce the flack you're going to take.
Mhm.
And it's one of those things that I believe that the voters of this town will remember based on your behavior. And last time I was elected, I actually thought that was a very important thing to remember.
Thank you,
Keeping
George.
Thank
in
you.
mind
Have a
that some
good evening.
political
Thank you.
parties are down to 40% approval at the moment and are lucky to, get any of their reps elected. Thank
Okay.
you very much for your giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Are there any other members of the public that would like to speak?
You didn't follow instructions.
Yeah.
Gave you a class.
Hi, John Latcher, 10 McElwain Drive, Litchfield, New Hampshire. Good evening.
Welcome.
I don't claim to be a lawyer or anything, but after listening to George over here, it's kind of a little bit over my head. As you remember at deliberative session, I mentioned to the board that the ARPA funds would pay for the fire engine. Many cities and towns across the United States have used that money to purchase the fire engine. Now, Mr. Lynch was talking. I saw him before I left. He was saying that you didn't know anything about it. How could you use the ARPA funds? You didn't know what to use them for, right? But all I did was just do a little research, and I found out that cities and towns use that money all the time for fire engines. Why does Litchfield have to be different from the norm? Why do we have to threaten with lawsuits? Why do we have to have all this garbage? Why can't we do a few things that everybody else does? Like I said, across the United States, towns have used this money to purchase a fire engine. Do we need a fire engine? Yes, we do need a fire engine. Mr. Leary, Selectman Leary just said, hey, why don't we vote on it again next year? Why? So it costs me, the taxpayer, I'm working 4 days a week now, trying to make a living. And then you want me to finance this fire engine for 5 more years for 40, 50, 60, 70, maybe even $100,000 more? I mean, the people have spoken. They said that they do not want to use their taxpayer money to pay for this fire engine. All right. Maybe they heard me at deliberative session. I have no idea. Over 300 people, if you look on the website, watched the deliberative session, right? Half of them, what is it, about 100 and something difference between the voting? Maybe half of them split. Half of them said, hey, the town's getting $1 million. Why aren't we using this to pay for the fire engine, right? And maybe half of them said, well, I don't know. I don't know anything about the ARPA fund.
It's impossible to know what was in
It's
their mind.
impossible to know, right?
And I do remember you
And-
mentioning that.
And you know, what would we have done if the fire engine did pass? Would the selectmen does not have to have a public hearing. Okay, they do not have to have a public hearing. The people voted no. They do not want you to use taxpayer money to pay for this fire engine. Period. All right. Now, if the fire engine passed, would you guys be having a public hearing to say, hey, do we give Mr. Brown for the highway department? Is it okay if we give him $300,000 of this federal money? Is it okay if we give the transfer station to pave their parking lot when I'm driving like this to avoid the potholes down there, which that should have been paved many years ago, the parking area down there? Should we have a public hearing to ask them if we can do that? I mean, it's ridiculous. It's federal money. You guys have the power to do whatever you want with that money. You don't have to have a public hearing. I mean, it's ridiculous. George over here is talking about lawsuits and that. Like I said at the beginning, why do we have to make everything so difficult in this town? Let's keep it simple, okay? Let's avoid the drama that I've learned being in this town for many years. There's a lot of drama in this town. We have to make things bigger than they really have to be. Let's keep it simple. Let's use the money to pay for the fire engine. We know that we're going to have to buy it sooner or later, okay? We're not going to keep putting things off because it ends up costing me and everybody else more money. Now, I didn't hear Mr. Brown talk about at the deliberative session that he needed a culvert, that he needed to pave this road, that he needed to pave that road. Maybe he should have mentioned that at the deliberative session and added on to the budget, and he would have had all that stuff done, right? I didn't hear him say that. I was at the deliberative. I didn't have Mr. Brown come up and say, hey, I need $300,000 to pave that road. I need $400,000 to fix that culvert. I didn't hear him say that.
There was no warrant article
Right.
for that.
I didn't hear him say. He could have added it to the budget, right? He could have added it onto the budget if he wanted to, right?
It's usually done with a warrant article.
Right.
And that warrant article
Right.
gets removed this year
Right.
for cost, for your
my-
tax dollars.
But my point is that we need to buy the fire engine. There's no question about it. We can only put it off for so long. I've heard, like I just repeat myself again, that it's going to cost a lot more money next year than it's going to right now. All right. So to help the taxpayers out, once again, let's purchase the fire engine with the money that we have, whatever's left over. You guys have the authority to do whatever you want with it. All right. Whatever you want with it. It's federal money. Your discretion. That's why we elected you people. All right. That's why we elected you people. To make the decisions for us. All right. That's what we elected you for, right? So let's purchase the fire engine. Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You were good.
Thank you. Normally not so good.
I want the dog park. That's what I would have wanted. Okay, Joe Cabral, Brickyard Drive. I'm gonna ask this to Frank. Frank, have you ever really looked to see what we could get for a used one on a fire truck? No, say, just to say if there's one out there.
There's always used trucks out there.
Okay, well, what would the average be, say, on age then? Oh, okay, so all right.
I'd have to do the research.
Okay. Because that, to me, if that would have gave us an option, say if we didn't get that one, let's go used. Because I think I heard Kevin say in the past this town has bought used, if I remember right. Have you mentioned in the past that we've bought a used fire truck?
Yes, we have.
Okay.
That's going back in time too.
Right, I know. But I'm in favor for that. And then you can take some of the other money that you're going to get from that ARPA fund, okay, and spread it around. Let me tell you, I plow in the town, the roads suck. You hit a couple manhole covers with that wing plow, you'll know, okay? It sucks. And Robin is one of your worst ones, okay? That piping into that thing is going. I think Jack mentioned it a long time ago. I have plowed that thing for 4 years. It's a piece of shit. So you got a road problem coming
That
up.
road's been failing for years, that lower.
Yeah.
end of it.
Oh, yeah. It's bad. And I mean, that's not the only one. There's others. I've been on Brenton and hit a couple of manhole covers. Didn't get no mailboxes this year, guys. Not on my truck. So, but I can't afford a new truck, Frank. To be honest with you, I'm on a fixed income. Okay? I can't afford it. Give you a used one? Boy, I'd be right there for you. The other thing is when you say you needed it, you didn't bring to the people. The inspection report should be brought to the people, I think, to actually see what is wrong with the truck. And then some, like the board, did they do that to the board? Did they bring you guys a thing saying what was wrong with the truck actually? No, see, if they had done that if you had done that to the board, Frank, that might have helped you. Because if you look at it, the budget committee said no. What it was, 3 or 4 of them that didn't recommend it.
Well, they supported it personally, but.
Right, but
But
they
they
didn't
couldn't do
recommend
it.
it.
Legally, they
Yeah.
couldn't do it because of the tax cap.
Right.
But if you listen to the discussion, I think almost every one of them supported it.
Pretty much everybody did.
Right. But I think if you had done that, that would have helped you.
So the board was presented with the FOIA analysis that was
Yes.
done by a third party,
Mhm.
as well as the results of that by the truck committee.
All right,
As part of-
but the one truck you're replacing, did that inspection report go to them?
The whole fleet was
The whole fleet
analyzed.
was-
The whole
last
fleet
year,
was, okay,
And that was provided.
okay.
That documentation's available.
If the warrant article had never hit the ballot, you guys could have used that money for anything you wanted.
Right.
We wouldn't be having this.
We wouldn't be having this.
That's right.
But I'm a firm believer on no goes no, because the school, like he's mentioned in this town, some things got turned down and all of a sudden they come out of the woodwork with the money to do it. Nobody trusts that school board.
Mhm.
You're going to have the same thing happen here. And everyone that's sitting in that seat, I'll guarantee you'll be gone the next time around with people. Because that's what happens. When you say no, you should stick to the no. Okay? Because I just see you getting in a bunch of trouble with it. And fix the roads and some other stuff. Give Frank a used truck. And that would be the best route to me I can see going. Frank, stop looking for a used one real quick. Because I'll push for that used one, but I can't do the new one. I want to see you fix some other stuff. You want to see one I want to see done? Give the goddamn policeman a police station. That is the worst damn police station we've got. That is miniature. Take some of that money and put an addition on the fire department. You can share a little parking lot and put an extension on for those guys. That's something the building committee should be looking into. Is adding on to that. Those guys need it. They need other stuff. There's other needs in the thing.
But that was discussed during the CIP plan.
Yeah.
It's part of the plan.
Right. And see, there's other needs, but I don't want to dump it all on one truck. I just can't see that. I know it will hurt later on if you go, like you say, you put it on the ballot next year. I know he says it's gonna go up. Everything goes up. Okay? Try living on a 2% increase on Social Security and see what it's like when you keep squeezing the pocket.
Hmm.
Okay? You'll get there eventually. Okay? Because I got screwed out of my retirement from a corporation. Boy, when you get to that level, it hurts. Yeah, but the police station, that's all I gotta say.
Thank
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Take care.
No, I think there's a penalty.
Any other members of the public like to provide input this
It
evening?
didn't say in the letter.
Okay, close
Hearing
the-
none, we will close public input at 7:55.
I'm just curious, do we have any members of the public online?
No, no.
Nope, it's not even running this evening.
I would just state one more thing in that we had our first budget committee meeting the other night, and this was a topic of discussion.
Dude,
after.
I'm trying to help you out.
And several members of the committee were disappointed that we are having this discussion after the town election. We have spent the last couple of years trying to build a good town reputation with the budget committee, and I think we've taken a step backwards. In fact, one member said, I can't look at the town as the most honest board anymore. So that's going to hurt us come this budget season, I think. They're going to look at us with crisscrossed eyes. It's pretty sad.
Just say that, add to that, it's odd to say that, in my opinion, we wanted to know where's the no, and they're upset with the way we put it in. We let the voters decide, and the voters said no.
Mhm.
Bottom line. If we knew how much ARPA funding we were going to get, which I had no idea how much it was going to be, okay? Even though we had the deliberative session, I had no idea how much was in it. I couldn't say anything.
And we didn't know that it was going to be allowed to be used for that.
Correct.
And that's why we did the warrant in the
Yep.
first place.
Yep.
And I mean, I still believe, I mean, I'm going to say it till the day I die. If we had pushed this thing like we should have with the department, I think it would have passed. I absolutely believe that.
May I come up just for another minute?
Come
No,
on
we-
up, George. You're a friendly
please.
face.
Thanks.
We got a long
We
night.
had closed it.
No more caffeine.
I'll be really quick.
Good.
I yelled it from the back, but if you hadn't put it on the warrant article, you wouldn't be having this discussion
That's right.
because you had grant money that you thought was coming in, right?
Thought.
And if it came in, you get the truck and all is well. You just
Yeah.
spend the money.
You know, it's easy to look back in hindsight. We start drafting warrant articles in November.
Uh-huh.
There was no guidance given at the time if we could purchase these funds, if we could purchase a fire engine. We got into December. We reached out to the state contractor that was hired to provide guidance to towns. We sent them an email and asked them, can we purchase a fire engine with this? They came back with a response that didn't say yes, it didn't say no. The clock was ticking, deliberatives getting close, budget committee needs to review and approve warrant articles. We were boxed in and we had to write the article the way we did.
Mhm.
So hindsight's
then-
everything, but
and then-
we're sitting there without the information, without the facts. We cannot go to the taxpayers and ask them to do something when we don't have the facts ourselves.
I agree.
That's why the question was asked, do you want to raise and appropriate X amount of dollars for the next 5 years to buy a new fire engine? Unfortunately, they said no. The budget committee couldn't support it.
I
They
would
had a
add to
tax.
that, this scenario, George. If we decided to go ahead and have done that, and then for whatever reason, the federal government said, no, this is not a good purpose, now the town's got to write a check for $680,000 to the federal government. You would be sitting in that chair a lot more angry than you are. Right?
Yeah, and I think we owed it to the process to have this discussion even after the fact. So, for members of the budget committee to be upset at us, I mean, we didn't make any action. We're having a discussion about the use of ARPA funds and what we can do for it. I mean, we're being very transparent by doing it. We never took action against no means no. We wanted to understand the whole entire process. And I think that's what we're elected to do, is understand what we need to do with the monies in the town's best interest.
And remember the fact that the federal government is saying right off the bat that this is to make up for lost revenue.
Yeah. Which was a
And
new.
Show
concept.
me how the bucolic town of Litchfield lost $800,000 during COVID.
I think we did.
It's too late. It's on the cloud.
Anyway, thank you again. I normally don't get up and speak a second time. I just wanted to say, if it had been pulled off the warrant at the last minute.
You owe us, George. You owe us.
All right, dude. I'm sorry.
I
I spent days on this, so.
Take care.
Thank you,
All right,
George.
so I just wanted to remind the board that we have a non-public scheduled at the end of the meeting.
Yes, so we need
And
to.
legal counsel is here. So just wanted to point that out.
Queen.
We did have an email come in that I promised we would answer the questions after this session. I just want to make sure we address the
We had a
person.
resident who sent an email to each individual selectman.
Yeah, I'm going to leave them anonymous. They want to be left anonymous. I will give you the record for the note, though. There's been discussion that the selectmen will be using ARPA funds to purchase a fire truck that was rejected by the voters. Can you do this with the okay of the voters? So we're having that discussion right now, right? Okay. Let me see. Hold on one second. Someone said we have already received $500,000 of the $900,000 we are to receive. Where is that money now? You have answered that. Are we earning interest?
Yes.
Negligible.
Meager, meager interest. Okay.
What's
You
the
did
interest
say it
rate?
was in an account, right? I know.
It's going up.
The only thing I don't understand what they're asking. I understand part of it, but they would like to know if the town has Dunn's and Sam number.
Yes.
Is it
Dun and Bradstreet.
Dun and Bradstreet, but I'm not sure. it's-
That's equivalent to the town, a social security number. It's our federal identification.
Okay, so the
number
answer
for
is
grants.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I just promised that I would answer those questions.
Just for the record, anonymous, letters or emails are public records. So I don't know if it can't really be anonymous
No,
because
But no, I didn't name the person.
I'm
but
just
we can
saying
put
Right,
the
but if
content
somebody
in.
wanted that,
If somebody-
they would know the person's name.
that could be, that's a public document.
Okay,
I didn't want to answer it until we talked about it tonight. Thank you.
okay.
So now that we've had public input, we're back to the question of, as a board, do we want to have a public hearing to address the uses of ARPA funds for the fire truck? Or the usage of, or do we want to have the ARPA funds go to the CIP, have them draft a plan, come back to us? Yes, we came with two different things.
I'm not in favor of using the ARPA funds. When people said no, that's where I stand
For the fire truck.
for the fire truck. That's where I stand.
And I'm going to agree with Bob and Elmer. That's how I feel about it because it was put in their hands to vote. We didn't know how much money it was going to be for available. I didn't know. And we didn't know what we could use it for exactly at the time.
Question is, should we have a public meeting to discuss in a general nature use of the ARPA funds with the fire truck being one of the
One of many.
possibilities?
Correct. Knowing that would be at a higher price point at the time if we did choose to go down that path.
Or a used fire truck.
Or use fire truck, correct.
I would be in favor of that.
But it's not going to happen by the 17th.
No, I mean, any chance of us, from my standpoint, any chance of us using all the ARPA funds to purchase a fire truck in order to lock in the price, those are out the window.
Correct.
That's my
Well,
feeling.
I think one thing, we do have a CIP committee, and this is part of the whole program. The fire department was part of the CIP. Okay, they had a fund in there so much to go each year. I think we ought to look at this whole, because we have a capital improvement project, which means everything. Okay, and the town is everything. We're not just one group, it's the whole town, and we have to think about. So I think we ought to have a look at the CIP review to look at it as well. They have funding available. Now, how we use it, okay? The CIP committee is what we have to work with. Now, understand that no means no, stuff like that, green area, gray areas, there's always that kind of stuff. But I think that, the CIP is important to be part of this program because that's what we have that group for, to come back to us and say, this is what's going on. So I think we should bring it to the CIP to have them look at it and then get back to us. And then we'll look at whether we should go to a public hearing at that point on. Okay? That's how I feel about it.
Well, again, if we go to the CIP plan, without the fire truck lease purchase in there, it's still $445,000. So if you're gonna go to the CIP plan, are you gonna pick and choose? Or are you gonna follow it to the letter?
Well, the whole CIP has to get redone this session anyways, because there's stuff from 2021 and 2022 that didn't pass during the warrants. So the whole entire plan, being a living plan, is going to have to extend.
Okay.
And we can also readdress priorities based off of, did something new come in, such as the work that Road Agent Brown brought forth that needs to be done. That's going to have to be added into the plan. We'll have to look at the plan as a whole.
Okay.
That's the gist of why we have the CIP. It's a
The
living
advantage of
document.
my feeling, the ARPA funds are great for the CIP, the whole town. Okay, if we can get something done in the whole town and look at the fire truck as part of an option, or what's going to happen, or get used, or whatever we decide to do. Not me. I'm not just bringing up. I'm just bringing up suggestions. Okay, but I think we're going to look at that in a big picture, not just a small picture, the whole town picture. That's how I feel about it.
I like the CIP idea. Do we still need to we don't need a public hearing yet until CIP is
Correct.
analyzed and
CIP
maybe town heads are looked at,
We have
and
CIP
you speak with the town heads.
We have a planning every time. We have a public hearing every time with a CIP, right, to adopt it. When we amend it, will we do it again?
Well, the process we used, the CIP committee held its own public hearing, and then it came to the Board of Selectmen, and you held it.
We held one, so there were two that were held. Now, what we never spoke about was, as we make amendments to it, are we going to go through that same process?
I would think so.
It would probably make
It's
sense. Get more public input.
Correct.
Anytime you have a long-term financial plan, you're going to want documented opportunity for the public to voice input.
Mm-hmm.
Can some educational document be created, posted on the website of just what ARPA is, what are the funds, and what
I
did the
think we
town
can
get?
reach out to Mr. Brunel and I can create a little ARPA category, and we have some videos and we have some PowerPoint presentations that have been shared recently, and those are good sources of data to put out there.
Just
Sources of
so they know
information.
what qualifies and what will not qualify with this money.
I think half the problem, ARPA is it's all new. Come up since somebody invented COVID. So now all the towns are having trouble trying to deal with this. It's not just towns, it's not just here, it's all over. The city's too involved.
All right.
Thank you.
You're gonna call it to a vote, or we just?
I mean, or is the will
Consensus.
just to push it to CIP and see, I mean, how would we like to address it?
I would like to see to go to the CIP to review it while they're doing the whole thing and look at the funding that we have that may correct some of the issues we have and what we can do to add to the fire department's needs.
I've had no personal experience with the CIP, so I'm pretty useless. But I think if I was a member of the CIP and I would hear the selectmen talking about spending all this money and not taking them into account, I would be pissed.
Yeah, because we spent a lot of time developing that plan.
That's right.
A lot of time.
It's not just every town that I worked in, they have a CIP group. Okay, and they go through the same process every 2 years, whatever they are. So it's all part of the budgeting process. It's what it's all about.
If you guys don't have a CIP team right now,
We have them, and we're still looking for one more citizens rep.
There you go, George.
put me on, babe.
You got to shave.
What? Never.
I didn't think so.
I shaved one.
I know.
It wasn't pretty.
As our CIP rep, what do you think?
Fine, come to the meeting.
Taking that over.
Thank you too.
That starts April 4th, right? Coming up.
But you gotta let me to be the citizen rep.
Well, we got to put it out there and see if we get anybody else. But if not, I mean, last time we ended up with, we had two spots and we got two people that volunteered. So they both ended up with it.
There you go.
I'd vote for you.
All right, do we need any further guidance on that?
I think
We're good.
we're good.
Right. Thank you to everyone.
So you have a motion.
Mm.
Was there a second?
There was
No,
never
I
a motion
couldn't-
made.
Motion.
No.
I only asked if there was going to be a motion. I can't make a motion.
No.
And I think it's,
I make a motion. I suggested we go to the C. Okay, I make a motion. We send it to the CIP.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
second by Mr. LaSalle's. All those in favor, Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 500. Next, in the sake of time, we'll make all these appointments under one motion.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Have a good evening. Bye, Chief. So we have Laura E. Mills, Deputy Town Clerk, Tax Collector, expiring March 13th, 2023. We have Michael Falzone, Trustee of the Trust Fund, term expiring on March
sure it's-
13th, 2023. Karen Salidas, Deputy Treasurer, term expiring on March 31st, 2024. We have Mike Boshi, Recreation Commission, regular member, term expiring March 31st, 2025. We have Judy Brennan, Recreation Commission, regular member, with the term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Laura Gandia, ZBA, full member, with a term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Albert Gilbo, ZBA, full member, with the term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Jason Brennan, Conservation, full member, term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Diane Plansky, Conservation, full member, with the term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Kate Stevens, Planning Board, full member, with the term expiring on March 31st, 2025. We have Ronald Stevens, Planning Board, full member, with the term expiring on March 31st, 2025. And we have Curtis Sampson, Planning Board, full member, with a term expiring on March 31st, 2025. Do we have any members we'd like to have removed for discussion?
I'd like to add another one.
Okay.
The library director sent me an email later today and asked if we could add Alan Sandler as a library trustee alternate for a one-year appointment.
1 year. So it'd be March 31st, 2023.
Correct.
Yeah.
We have to wait until the other two members come back from the,
Unless you got
We have three, so we can do it. Are there any members that people would like to remove for discussion? Appointments? Hearing none, do we have a motion to approve the appointments as mentioned?
I'll make a motion to approve it as mentioned.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch.
Second.
We have a second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor, Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 400. Next item is committee members not seeking reappointment. We have Mark Falladou, ZBA alternate member, with his term expiring March 31st, 2022. We have Mark Benoit from the ZBA alternate member, with a term expiring on March 31st, 2022. We got what's that? We got Henry. I always mess up Henry's last name. Harry's last name.
Menzigian.
Menzigian, thank you. Heritage full member with the term expiring March 31st, 2022. Do we have a motion to accept their non-seeking reappointment?
Yes.
We have a motion by Mr. Leary,
Second.
second by Ms. Queenan. All those in favor, Mr. Leary,
Aye.
Mr. Lynch,
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Motion carries 400. Mr. Brown, can you please send them all a note with our thanks?
And what I will do is with those vacancies now that we're aware of, in the CIP
So
community rep, we'll get a notice out this week.
we're gonna let Rich back in.
Oh, I'll go help Rich back in.
Yeah, he's not ready yet.
He's coming.
Thanks, Matthew.
Yeah, good.
Okay, next we have Town Administrator Report. Mr. Brown.
All right. Town administrator report. So a couple things. Received communication from Matt Lepore, Jason Brennan. Both are working, as they do on trail systems in our town. And they just want to make the board aware that some of the work that they're going to be doing on Boulder Dash and the White Trail all have to do with stream crossing improvements, a minor trail relocation to get it out of some of the wet areas, and just bringing it to the board's attention. The board has asked in the past that they be notified when some of this work is going to be done. I think the board's probably aware, we've received some emails, we've seen some stuff on social media about speed complaints and traffic violations on Albuquerque. Selectman Leary had suggested that we make sure our police department's aware of these concerns and forward it off to them for,
Forward it to them.
for enforcement. And that's what we'll do. I'll talk to Road Agent Brown, see if our signage is meeting the standards. Do we have stop ahead signs? Do we have the speed limit signs up? But I have heard a lot of comments about speed on Albuquerque. And
Talent Road as well.
Yeah.
Talent Road's a speedway going up towards the high school.
We also, I've received through the selectmen's email complaints about Pennachuck water rates, the quality of the water. So we had received correspondence at our last meeting. I had forwarded that to the attorneys that represented the town during the rate hearings. And they're going to be putting together a response to all those questions. A lot of that stuff was dealt with their expert witness. So, I'll be getting a response. And again, we just received another email from another resident concerned about the rate increase. That's it.
That's it. Hey, Mr. Lynch.
I have not met with the Conservation Commission, so it's all right. I have nothing to say.
Okay. Ms. Queen.
Me. Monday, April 4th, the Capital Improvement Planning Commission will be meeting. Yeah, it's a good thing, based on tonight's discussion. That will be my first meeting. Thank you for handing that to me.
You're welcome.
I will be reaching out to you for some past work questions. The next day, Tuesday, April 5th, is the normal planning board meeting. We will also be working with Jay Mancara to set up a workshop about Albuquerque. It was about the traffic calming measures before. I was blaming obnoxious drivers, but maybe more signs are maybe needed.
I know.
So we'll talk, I'll add that, this concern to it, but I mean,
Good idea.
we can't control that, but let's just have the discussion overall and see if we're going to have a hearing or, workshop on that. There was the quarterly commissioner NRPC meeting on March 16th. I will give you an update. There was a lot there, and I will give you an update at the next meeting because of all the planning done for this meeting. And, okay. Yep. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Recreation Commission, we don't meet until, I think it's the
So
12th, so I have no update with that. And the school facility improvement, we have a meeting on the 6th, I believe, be the next one. Mr. Leary.
Budget Committee met last week, first meeting of the year, got the new officers on board. And as I said before, it was quite a bit of discussion about using the funds for the fire engine. A lot of members aren't happy. I had a question for Kevin, you're on conservation. A resident emailed me and said that the Birch Street Conservation Trail, I believe it is closed.
Yep.
And they wanted to know why.
Say it again?
The Birch Street Conservation Area or trail is closed, and they were curious as to why.
I have no idea. I'll
Okay,
find
yeah,
out.
Please. And what Troy was talking about with the water, the complaints about the water, the dirty water. That's something else to throw in the mix for these ARPA funds. I know Richard mentioned it a couple of meetings ago about possibly doing our own water system. Or maybe putting in a better filtration system for the town. Something we can use the ARPA funds for as well. And at some point, maybe we do look into our own water system. If it's going to work like Hudson's did, where they paid a fraction of what we paid for 20 years, maybe we can help the residents out by bringing the water rates down instead of always having them go up. And I stand nothing to gain because I'm on a well, so. And it's not contaminated yet. So. Other than that, no, I had it tested. Well, it's well below the levels.
Mr. LaSalle.
Heritage is, I think, going to meet in April. We haven't met for a while. There hasn't been any need to, but I think that there will be a meeting in April.
Okay, thank you.
Can I add one more thing?
Sure.
Speaking of heritage, the work that's being done at the Old Town Hall, Mr. Charbonneau, who's doing a lot of the work, and thanks to him for doing that, was going to hydroseed the grass area. We're going to sod it instead. And he has volunteered to put in a sprinkler system,
Nice.
My
irrigation system.
gosh.
That's great.
He's going to do that. I spoke with him the other day. I'm going to secure the sod, and we'll have some donations for that. And what's not covered with that will be my next selectman stipend donation. So, but yeah, we're going to sod it so that it's ready for Memorial Day festivities and the Purple Heart dedication, which is underway. Troy's been working on that. And thank you for that, Troy.
Yep.
That I just wanted to bring that up. So, thank you.
Thank you.
That's wonderful.
I promise that's it.
We do have one more item of business this evening. It's non-public session under RSA 91A:32A, employee dismissal, discipline, or investigation. Do we have a motion to go into non-public?
A motion to go on non-public.
We have a motion by Mr. Lynch,
Second.
second by Mr. Larry.
You give it to Rich.
All those in favor, Mr. Larry.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am also an aye. Roll call vote to go into non-public. Mr. Lynch.
Aye.
Ms. Queenan.
Aye.
I am a yes.
Aye.
Mr. LaSalle's.
Aye.
We are now in non-public session. While we do not anticipate the need to return to a public session following the non-public for any reason other than adjourn the meeting, we reserve the right to do so if the non-public session necessitates the board taking action in a public session. Thank you. Have a good evening and be well.
Take care.